everyone. I'm your host, Pooja Kandalia, and you're now watching Rise Above, Stories of How Inspiring People Found Empowerment Through Adversity. In this episode, I am honored to introduce our guest speaker, Cynthia Chan. Cynthia is a leadership coach and executive presence consultant with an impressive background of nearly 30 years in global leadership roles. Throughout her career, Cynthia has faced and conquered formidable challenges in her private life and in the corporate world. Her path to success has been paved with determination and resilience. At the young age of 29, she achieved remarkable heights as the chief representative of an international interior design firm, marking just the beginning of her ascent. She further went on to lead renowned brands and Fortune 500 businesses in the design and real estate industry, solidifying her position as a true trailblazer. Cynthia's commitment to mentoring and coaching throughout her career has been instrumental in distinguishing her in the field. Today, we delve into her transformative journey and gain invaluable insights on how she managed to remain resilient through her hardships and emerge as the strong, successful, and empowered woman she is today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's always kind of strange having someone read about you to yourself, especially since we have been colleagues in the past, and so you kind of know me already.
Yeah, exactly. It's a bit strange for me too. It feels so formal. But anyways, thanks so much for coming on today. How about we get into our first question?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, let's start at the beginning. How do you think your upbringing has shaped your work ethic and determination to overcome challenges?
Um, I think when I really believe there's this one defining moment where
Mhm.
things changed for me when I was young. I don't know whether to think or I don't know whether to thank my father or blame my father. But I
Yeah.
remember when I was very young, my father came to me and said to me, he was. I mean, I think it was out of love, and he wanted to
Mhm.
let me know that I wasn't born as smart or as bright as my siblings. And because I wasn't as bright as they were, I
Mhm.
needed to work much harder. So it was almost to him like it was a hint
But what do
or
you mean you weren't born as smart as your siblings? Do you feel like maybe he thought you were progressing more slowly in school or something? Or like why do you
um
think he said this to you?
oh, okay, good question, because at the time I was also kind of shocked that I wasn't expecting. One day he was like, "Hey, I wanted to talk to you about something," and I was
Yeah.
really young. I was maybe like, I don't know, 6 or 7 years old. So um, I'm okay. I feel it could be because
Yeah.
my because my dad is almost like a scholar. Like
Hmm.
he reads so much. He's so well educated. So he's
Yeah.
constantly testing us when we were young.
Oh, okay.
Just testing our memories or testing our knowledge about things, and it was like around a dinner table, and he'll be
Did
like
you
testing us with questions.
did you feel like this was a bit intense for like looking back on it for a child to be tested constantly around the dining table or
No, I didn't, because I didn't know like it didn't feel like a test. So I didn't know. I just like
okay.
if I don't know the answer, I don't know, you know. If
Mhm.
I don't remember, I don't remember. So it wasn't I wasn't pressured or anything,
Okay.
and I didn't really notice it until he, went to me and said like, "Hey, we should have a talk," you know.
Hmm.
And that's when he said that to me and say like, you need to know something about yourself, you know. So because he said it, he put it that way, and he was like, "Oh, because you weren't born as smart as they were, you would
Hmm.
then have to work twice as hard as everyone else." Now,
Okay.
when he said that to me, I don't know if it's a good thing or bad thing, because okay, at first, of course, I felt really bad as a child
Hmm.
to be kind of labeled. So I took that as a way to tell me that I'm dumb. So I kind of
Hmm.
believed it all throughout school,
Yeah.
that I was dumb. But I
Oh
didn't want to be
no.
dumb, you know?
Yeah.
So then I was like, okay, I really do have to work harder than everyone else. So
Hmm.
I made it a point that all through elementary school, high school, I said to myself, okay, if someone studies 2 hours for a test, I'm going to study 4 hours for a test. And
Okay.
I made it very, and I made other things that kind of helped me with my work ethics, I think,
Okay.
because because I was because I felt like I'm a little slow. I needed to make sure that I stand out. In order to stand out, whatever I promised people, for example, I would make sure it's almost like a contract. I would do it. I would
Mhm.
never commit to something without 100% sure that I could. So it kind of, so I always knew, for example, that okay, I'm gonna work harder than everyone else. I'm much
Yeah.
more detail oriented than everyone else because I need to
Mhm.
make sure everything I do is perfect. Then I
Exactly.
spend more time. I also, so when other people rely on me on things, I make sure that I commit and I deliver well.
Mhm.
So in that sense, I think what he said to me kind of helped me. But also when I reached college, that's when I
Mhm.
realized, oh, I'm not dumb.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
when I was in college, because I was away
Mhm.
from my family, and I moved from San Francisco to New York,
Mhm.
and San Francisco, East Coast, West Coast, it's almost a completely different culture. And when I
Yeah.
got to New York, I was a little, I was on my own, very independent, and I
Yeah.
was kind of everything was relying on myself. And that's when I realized, hey, actually, I'm not that dumb. Everybody was
Yeah.
just like me, So,
Yeah.
and I
And this put
actually
you a step,
excelled.
yeah. It put you a step ahead, right? Like,
Yes, yes, because of I think because of the practice that I've had for so many years, it actually
mhm.
helped me because kind of excelled in school. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so ultimately you would say that this was more positive than negative?
I would say it's half and half because it is I mean, now that I'm a mother myself,
Yeah.
I don't think I would ever
Yeah.
label a child.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, I'm almost certain that's not the way to go. Because I think if you're strong, innate, if you have a strong character, it
Mhm.
might be act as a push. But if you have a slightly less stronger character, that might really, put you in another,
Mhm.
another direction.
Like a negative
And
mindset about yourself. Yeah.
yeah, and so I don't know that's a good thing. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't exactly do the same thing.
Mhm.
Let's say I wouldn't really label a child.
But
So
I guess it's a testament to your resilience that you managed to take that and decide to work harder instead of just saying, "Oh, well, I guess I'm not as smart as my siblings. I'm just gonna kind of give up."
yeah, luckily I think I it became a boost, but it still
Mhm.
took a toll because even when I
Yeah.
was younger, I mean when I was older, but much younger than I am now,
Yeah.
I in my 20s I struggled still,
hmm
thinking, still kind of believing, wait, am I slower than other people? So yeah.
hmm So, after your childhood, I understand you had a rapid rise to professional success. While everything looked great on the outside, I also understand that you were struggling with a lot of personal difficulties as well. Would you mind telling us a little bit about that and how you kind of kept together during that time on the outside as well?
Mm, that's a great question. And I think a lot of professional women kind of has the same difficulties that I
hmm
had. Um, and I've never actually shared this with too many people
hmm
because on the outside, yes, I was excelling and I was moving up that corporate ladder quite fast.
hmm
And from the outside, everything looks perfect.
Yeah.
However, but privately, I was struggling. Um, and I don't talk about this too often because it
hmm
was still it's still pretty raw in some ways, even though it's so
hmm
many years ago. But I was struggling with domestic violence.
hmm
Um, and at the time, I was I had my son very, very young, and I was with his father at the
Yes.
time, and I was I think it's also because I was young and also didn't know who to turn to. And
Mhm.
so at the time, um, I was struggling privately and I didn't have anybody to go to or to kind of share my problem. And I also and I- because I was young, I thought my job as a partner is to support my partner, no matter the circumstances.
Yeah.
So I not only supported him financially, but also, mentally as well.
Yeah.
But that took a toll, right? And
Mhm.
I remember, there are times that I was really struggling because coming home, I don't know what would happen. So
Yeah.
actually, the office became a safe haven for me. I
Mhm.
actually love going to the office because it was a place where I know what to expect. It was
Yeah.
predictable. It was under my control. I know exactly what needs to be done every single day. But coming
Mhm.
home, it was a wild card, right? It was I don't know what would happen. But the second I turned the doorknob, I don't know what to expect. And that
Yeah.
was very, very tough. Um, I mean, at the time,
Mhm.
I guess I didn't like think it was tough. It was just like part of life. But it was just not going, it was just a heavy toll. And I remember the saddest part was when I finally broke off the relationship and became
Mhm.
a single parent. I remember talking about this with my boss at the time. And my boss actually said to me was, I knew something wasn't quite right because I saw these bruises on your fingers. And I know that people don't get bruises on their fingers. And
Mhm.
I kind of go like, huh, wow, I thought I hide it really well because, you know, because nothing was shown on my face. And
Mhm.
I made sure my clothing hide whatever, you know,
Yeah, but that's
that
so,
was
but that's so awful. Like, why do you think your boss said after the fact that he saw the bruises on your fingers and didn't, step up in the
I was
workplace?
actually, yeah, that actually, I was taken aback because I was somewhat upset too, because I was like, what? So you knew and you never once asked me? Or,
Mhm.
and okay, granted, some people will say like, well, it's a private matter and you might not want to talk about it, so I don't want to ask. But actually, especially now that I work for Capitalize,
Yeah.
the more I think about it, or the more that we're trying to educate other people. Even now at
Mhm.
Catalyze, we're trying to educate organizations how they can actually step in to help. That's when I realized, there's much more organization can do to help.
Yeah.
Because when there's domestic violence happening to this particular employee,
Mhm.
her or his performance matters and it's impacted.
Exactly.
So,
And it's not
but
even just
anyhow,
about the performance, it's about the person too. Like, as an
yes,
employee of a company, they should value you as a person as well as they value you in your professional life. And I feel
exactly.
like, do you feel like maybe at your past company, you don't feel as if your boss saw you as a person as much as
I
you feel
think
like he should have?
so. This happened when I was in my 20s. So um, during that period, I also felt that like domestic violence was not talked about quite
Yeah.
as openly as we do now. So that was one factor. And another factor is because people think it's a private matter and it's not our problem, sort of. It is an organization. They don't feel like is it's a workplace problem. So they
Mhm.
also feel like maybe they don't have the right to step in. So I,
Yeah.
I I can only imagine that was what they were thinking at the time. But I also feel like how different it would have been if someone actually noticed or someone actually said
Mhm.
something or someone actually said, hey, do you need help? Because at the
Yeah.
time I really didn't know what to do, where to go,
Mhm.
because it was just never talked about. I remember going to the police.
Yeah.
And I remember at one point, which is after we already separated, and
Mhm.
physically separated. And I remember he was stalking me, and I went to the police for help.
Yeah.
And the police was like, "Oh, we can't do anything unless you are physically hurt. So if you're not physically hurt, there's nothing we can do." Now,
Mhm.
that is another scary thing to learn
Yeah.
when, because when you're hurt, it's a degree of like how hurt do I need to
Yeah.
be to show that I need
Exactly.
help?
Yeah.
So it was quite a scary time.
Mhm.
And luckily though, he was never ever abusive towards our child. So
Mhm.
so it was, so in that sense, it was, I was lucky. So yeah.
So awful that it's like you still say that you feel that you were lucky that he didn't harm your child when you went through so much.
Yeah, I actually do feel, I think that's also the only way to kind of explain your experience. I do see the good out of all of that, because I see that my son he is impacted in a way. I'm sure he's impacted, but at the same time, very clear about what kind of man he wants to be when he grows up, right? And
Yeah.
he is a young man now. He's 24 years old.
Mhm.
So, and I see that he knows what is right and what is wrong. And
Yeah.
so in that sense, and he also does value me as a mother very much, because he also he witnessed it, right?
Mhm.
How we kind of pull through. So he
Yeah.
always have my back, and I always have his back. So in that sense, I do see myself as lucky, because I can only imagine it could have been much worse. And it's another story, how I actually escaped that scenario. It wasn't as easy as like, oh, I pack and I go. It was not
Mhm.
that. It was not as easy as that people imagine. Oh, why can't you just walk away? It's not that easy.
Yeah.
Um, there are many incidences that I tried to leave the relationship with my son, and it was just not possible. He would
Mhm.
go to the all the companies that I was working with at the time, to make a
Yeah.
scene and saying that how I kidnapped his son, and so it was just not possible
Yeah.
until I it was to a point that I know I really have to leave. And the only way to do so is to pretend that I was going to give up my son. So he would
Oh
have
no.
nothing to hold against me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And but before I did that, me and my son, I mean, he was very young at the time, but he was a very mature. I mean, luckily he was very mature about this situation. And I discussed
Mhm.
it with him, and I said, I'm going to pretend leaving you. And
Oh
so that I
no.
can leave this,
Yeah.
environment. And because at the time we have housekeeper, I have a driver that live with us. I know that
Yeah.
my son wouldn't be left alone, and he would be fully taken care of. So because of
Yeah.
that, then and I remember my son telling me, "Mom, just go. I'll be okay. Just go." So and that's how
How
I
do
left.
you mind telling us how old your son was at the time to say this?
He was 9. He
Oh
was
my
9 at the
gosh.
time. He was very young.
Yeah.
And that night I packed up and I left.
Yeah.
And to cut the story short, and I promised him that I'll come back for him in 1 month. And
Yeah.
so within that month, I really had to pretend like as if I didn't care about
Mhm.
him. So I was just gonna live a single life. And but actually in reality, I was preparing another apartment, because
Yeah.
legally I found out that that's the only way I can not have my ex at the time to barge into wherever I was living. It has to be
Yeah.
legally a new residence address. So
Yeah.
I rented another apartment, and every time when he threatened uh,
Mhm.
to um, to leave my son, saying that,
Yeah.
well, you're gone, I'm gonna leave too. And I'll be like,
Yeah.
well, it's not my business anymore. I'm gone.
Oh
So at
no,
the end,
that's so awful.
he really thought that he really thought that I gave up on my son. So what he did
Yeah.
was he physically left the apartment and said like, oh, I'm leaving too. And
Mhm.
that's my chance to kind of go back to the old apartment and grab my son, and actually
Yeah.
along with the housekeeper, along with the driver, and we just
Yeah.
all moved. And
Yeah.
that's how we kind of left.
Thank you so much, Cynthia, for sharing your story. I remember earlier I asked you whether you feel as if your organization did enough to help you. Do you think organizations should do more? And what do you feel they should do in cases of domestic violence? Could you tell us a little bit about Catalyze best practice?
At Catalyze, we have our own framework. We call it
Oh,
the 3 R's framework.
mhm,
What the 3 R's are: first, you have to learn how to recognize domestic violence. And I think organizations should step up in their training programs. Then, how do you respond when someone comes to you, for example, to share their story? Now, sometimes people don't come right out and say what's
mhm,
exactly happening, but how do you hold space? How do you listen without judgment? How do
mhm,
you um, how do you be supported without bringing your own biases
mhm,
into the conversation? Now, those also is part of what that everyone needs to be trained on. Then the third
mhm,
is obviously is how do you refer when you realize there's such an incident and someone needs help? Who do they go to? How do you refer them to the appropriate
mhm,
channel, right? What are some of the hotlines that can help, or some of the policies of the organizations? Like, what are the options do employees have if they're faced with such environment? No. In my experience, I have come across an organization that offers relocation packages for
Okay.
employees that are facing domestic violence, and I thought it was genius, right?
Mhm.
To able to relocate to a different city, even sometimes
Yes.
to a different country,
And it provides an
and
excellent excuse as well.
yes, it's just and I really commend those types of organizations that really take
Mhm,
domestic violence seriously, and they don't view it as a private matter.
mhm. No, I definitely agree. Thank you so much for the overview on the 3 R's framework. For our viewers, there are links in the description below if you'd like to learn more about this framework as well. So, yeah, I guess let's move on to the next question. I
Yeah.
understand that after your ordeal, you got into coaching. Do you mind giving our audience a little overview of what coaching is and the moment you realized coaching was your true calling and purpose in life? What inspired you to help others, particularly those in pain or feeling stuck?
It's kind of funny because I didn't know that I've actually been doing coaching for close to 30 years.
Mhm.
I've been actually, helping people unlock their hidden potentials for so many years without really knowing the term coaching. You
So,
know,
just general mentorship.
well, it's coaching is a little different than mentorship. Mentorship is more about, almost passing on your experience onto someone, right? But coaching is it's more about that particular person.
So
So you're
I
trying to.
so
Mm,
so I worked under you in Catalyze. That would be more
mhm.
of a mentorship relationship.
Yes, that would be a mentor. Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay.
Um, but for example, coaching is a little different. Is that it's about that particular person, like almost
Mhm.
pulling out the full potential of that particular person. Now, how
Okay.
do you unlock it? How, like through this kind of journey of self-discovery, how do you reach your
Mhm.
full capabilities? And that would be coaching. Like the way I kind of always see it is like coaching is like a GPS. you know.
Okay.
It navigates you through like uncharted territories,
Mhm.
but finding the route to your destination, that will be coaching. So everyone's route will be different. It's not going to be the
Yes,
same.
exactly.
So yeah, and so I kind of see coaching that way. And I think one of the I think okay, I've come across so many coachees of mine,
Yeah.
where I realized one of the hardest part about coaching, or when you're in coaching, is to
Mhm.
actually kind of to gain clarity of
Yeah.
where you want to go. Now, that would be the first start with everyone that I come across. A
Okay.
lot of people feel stuck and they come to you, and they don't, a lot of times they don't even know what they want. So gaining that clarity, you have to almost do the hard work through that journey process. It's about gaining that clarity. Once you gain that clarity, then it's easy to
Mhm.
find the route towards that goal.
All right. Okay. Okay. Thank you so much for sharing your coaching story with us. As a coach, I was wondering if you had any tips for the audience on how someone can elevate themselves.
See, I have sort of a framework that I sort of created for myself, and I've been using that framework on all the
Mhm.
coaches that I'm working with. There's four
Okay.
things
Perfect.
that I kind of
Yeah.
see. Now, I mentioned earlier about clarity, right?
Mhm.
Clarity, conviction, confidence, and executive presence. These are
Mhm.
kind of the four things that I focus on when I work with someone. Clarity, I mentioned how important it is to like take ownership, right? To create a clear career goals. Now,
Mhm.
then conviction is understanding your true strength and skill set. This is where that hidden potential comes in, right? A lot of people
Okay.
don't
Yes.
actually know what that hidden potential is until you
Mhm.
actually, you know, work on yourself. Confidence, right? Showing up and allowing yourself to be visible. And
Mhm.
last is executive presence. Now, a lot of people think executive presence is about like how you stand, how you pose, or you know,
Mhm.
even how you dress, right? But see, the way I see it is about leaving a lasting impression as a leader. Now,
Mhm.
Maya Angelou, wisely said it. The people will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you make them feel. So what
Exactly.
we'll do, so what I usually do is to work on that, enhancing that impression that you leave on others, right? That refined presence will positively influence how other people perceive you, and making them feel inspired and valued, and enhancing your ability to make a lasting impact.
Mhm.
So that's kind of my own framework that I been kind of use on myself, and actually I've been refining it to work with others.
It's such a great framework. I feel like it's brought you to the person you are today, and I'm sure you've helped many others with this framework as well. Thank you so much for sharing. All right,
Thank you.
now we can move on to our final question to tie us back to our theme. What advice would you give to individuals who are facing adversity and seeking empowerment in their own lives?
Because this question has been asked to me so many times. So in the past, when you go on, presentation and so forth. So I
Mhm.
kind of, and I still think this rings true, and that is my advice is never underestimate what you're made of. The future is not defined by anything but you. So your mindset is what's going to set you apart from the rest.
Mhm.
And I
Exactly.
truly believe it. Mindset is everything. See, the thing about mindset is it's all in your control. See, if people understand that I can shift my mindset
Mhm.
just like that, then you know that you can do anything.
Mhm.
Because mindset is really starts with just use me as an example. When I was younger, my mindset was when I was labeled being not as bright as my siblings, my mindset immediately went to okay, what do I do? What can I do? I want to fix this.
Mhm.
Whereas my mindset could easily go and say, okay, so if I'm dumb, then I don't need to try because there's no point of trying because I was born dumb, you know? And so, but that's a mindset. You have that decision or you have that choice to make which way you want to go. So
Yeah.
mindset is it's all about how do you shift it. Now, the fundamental of shifting mindset to a more positive uh, light, I guess, is that you need to see the good in the bad. You have to observe. You have to pay attention. You have to be grateful of what are those good things that came out of the bad. Because if
Mhm.
all you see is bad, you will not be able to shift that mindset. So
Exactly.
yeah, so for me, it's a choice, right?
Hmm.
Um, you can choose. See, happiness to me is a choice. You can choose to be happy, and it's not you about sitting here waiting for something that you consider good to happen to you, so that you allow yourself to be happy. So I don't believe in that. I believe that you have the right to make a decision and say, you know, I choose to be happy today. And because I'm happy today, there's many things I can conquer. And so, and I think shifting of mindset, the 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 fundamental is this. It's about finding the good in the bad. Be able, actually, I should say you can to be able to see the good in the bad.
I love that final part about choosing to be happy and finding the good over the bad. It definitely is like every day you can wake up in the morning and there's probably many things to be upset about, but there's also many things to be happy and grateful for. And I definitely think focusing on having that positive mindset can help you get through so many situations. So thank you so much for sharing that. That's
Thank you.
definitely that's beautiful.
Thank you.
So yeah, thank you so much, Cynthia, for sharing your remarkable journey with us today. Your story of perseverance and resilience is truly inspiring. It's evident that you've overcome numerous challenges and emerged as a strong and successful woman. To our listeners, I hope you found Cynthia's story as empowering as I did. Remember, no matter what challenges you face, you have the strength within you to rise above and create positive change in your life.